and then, maybe some not so quality ones, I'm not sure. But we are presenting you an excellent opportunity to ask them questions, burning questions. I have some questions of my own right here. They're okay questions. Okay, you don't want me to ask those, but I'm going to sweeten the pot. I have a prize right here for the person in the audience who asks the best question in the panelist's opinion. I'm not the judge here. I have a vintage, unworn DEF CON 23 shirt right here that whoever asks the best question from the audience gets this shirt. Unfortunately, I only have one size, so if you're extra large, you're better off. So, let's get started. I'm Justin Ferguson. Many of you know me. I run OWASP Kansas City. I do DevSecOps stuff. Yay. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give me a 2-sentence bio of themselves, tell us which team they're on, and tell us what it means in 1 sentence to be on that team. Go for it.
I guess I get to start. All right, my name's Aaron Scantlin. You guys will see me a lot tonight. Sis Aaron on the Twitters if you want to make me feel better about myself. I would describe myself as a 60-year-old man in a 30-year-old sysadmin's body, and a pretty okay guy. I work on the blue team. I actually work out at the University of Missouri, Columbia campus, and I don't want to hear that. Describe blue team in one, just defending the network. I don't think you're going to get many interesting definitions on blue team. I bet red team will be the more interesting one. I just pulled that out.
Hi, I'm Tri-Wolf, aka Lauren. Jonathan Viller on Twitter, if you want to hit me. I have multiple identities. It's a problem. I'm a self-described cat lady / incident responder / senior analyst / I talk to CEOs / a lot of different things. Incorporated into a computer detective. I love SecKC, and I'm also not Julie / JFug. For the
You guys do look a lot alike.
8 people who have said that tonight.
Nor am I JFug, even though people confuse our usernames all the time.
I am on blue team, if you can't guess. And blue team to me is prevention is nice, detection is a must. And in my opinion, log analysis is sexier than popping a shell from some automated exploit.
Hey!
Yeah, one clap.
I'm Analog M, Mike Yelland. I have 20 years in experience of security, working everything for plane, trains, automobiles, boats. I currently am security officer and research, head of research for RavenEye. Locally, also an advisor to 3 other MSSPs, and I help run B-Sides. So, not to pimp, but make sure you come out next week.
Hey, Eric Ian, also known as Geoda on Slack and Twitter and everything. I do pen testing for an internal company here in KC. And then what it means to be a red teamer, we like popping shells, we like to get access and all that good stuff. Yep.
I'm Brian Archwist. I guess I'm technically red team. For the most part, I do app and network assessments. My goal is to help my clients do a better job at securing their stuff, not just, rubbing their face in it. So.
Well, I'm Ryan. I'm awesome. I'm on the best team, the red. I decked it out today. And red teaming is just that's really bright, yeah.
Now I really can't see anything.
Yeah, I hack stuff.
Alrighty. Well, we got that out of the way. So let's start out. I think Awesome had a leads me into a great question over there. Why is red team best team? And why is North Korea best Korea?
I'm not answering that second one.
Okay.
I think red team's the best team, probably because it's a lot easier than being on the blue team. I will admit that, because I just have to find one thing that they get wrong, and they have to make sure everything's right all the time. So, yeah.
How about a retort from the blue team? Why is blue team best team?
Purple team is best team.
Okay. So I guess I should have said, if you've got a question, if you want to try and win this t-shirt, just walk up here and ask. Wave at me, because I can't see anything, so you got to be up here.
Hey,
Hey,
what do you mean by purple team is best team?
purple team is a combination of red teamers and blue teamers working together to reach a common goal. So it's better if you're not just saying, hey, my job is to look at ArcSight all day and protect my client or my business, and thereby I am the greatest person in the world because I am a glorified cop. It's also not a great thing if you come in and say, look, I know how to own you guys, because it's really easy because you have no firewalls in place. It's not great to say that either, but when you're working together, you can get their perspective, they can get our perspective, and you can reach better goals, quicker, faster.
I like that answer.
I agree.
Okay, well, in order to drive even more questions, I just had an impromptu swag delivery up here, so I've got some Raspberry Pis to give away too, so come and get them, come ask questions. In the meantime, let's start with, oh, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say blue team's the best team because when I work for my company, I don't get anyone fired for the shit that I do. I can sleep at night.
Okay, so,
Ask that question, I dare you.
fair question. So let's start out with this one, because this is always fun, war stories. What's your best story about an on-the-job interaction with the other team?
And we ain't got no fucking red team in education, are you kidding me?
I thought all the students were the red team.
We do have one red teamer, I guess I should say. He's a new hire, but it's sort of a new thing for us. I don't know. I mean, it's a fair question. I think. I guess the worst thing in recent history. I mean, quick show of hands. Even though I really can't fucking see any of you. How many of you guys had to patch some of the Cisco iOS Smart Install vulnerabilities in your environment? I'm going to assume at least one person has raised their hand. I think that
I
was...
see two hands.
Okay, so...
The rest of you better go patch it.
Yeah, if the rest of you have Cisco switches, fucking get on that, man. Assuming you have Smart Install running. Anyway, I think that was, we recently had a really good purple team engagement with that. So we used some of the publicly available exploits that were out for those switches, and we tested our switches. I mean, what's a better way to figure out if you're vulnerable to something than to try and exploit that vulnerability? And of course, we didn't do any damage or anything, but just again, verifying whether or not that is there. That was a really good, I guess you asked for a war story, so I didn't answer this question well at all, but now you guys know how our Cisco patching went.
Okay, how about this red team, guys?
All right, so I think one of my favorites is actually pretty recent. We did an assessment and we just tore the shit out of this app. And when we went to present it, the team was so excited to learn about how we did it that they actually asked us to train them on how to do what we did. And when the blue team asks, hey, we really want to be able to redo this, and not only that, but be able to defend against it, that gets me excited.
Anybody else?
I do a lot of industrial controls as well as things that with wheels. And I can tell you that probably the best blue team, red team purple experience probably has to do with the fact that we have non-typical industrial controls. Their blue team is actually engineers. They're mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, people that facilitate things in buildings and in cars and whatnot. So to take a standard purple team, I'll put it that way, because they're blue team with red team attributes and how we address things. To be able to take that and have similar responses of train us on how to look at our electrical systems differently, train us on how to look at the data pathways that maybe a bus system that actually converts UDP and back over to TCP/IP, and how that's a flaw within our system when you make a train stop at 35 miles an hour on a track, unaltered. So I would say greatest successes in war stories is actually having that connection between what we consider typical engineers and then network engineers or security engineers. There's a huge gap right now with IoT, industrial controls, ICS, because the two don't talk. And it was an 8-month engagement and well worth it. We learned a lot about their systems, and they learned a lot of how we think.
Alrighty, great answers. So I got nobody standing up here to ask questions. Nobody's got questions.
I got a question.
Okay, get up here.
He's gonna win if no one else comes up.
Exactly.
By default.
Oh, I see a bunch of questions now. Okay, this is good.
Ask away.
So I was playing the odds, but now I have competitors. Anyway, based on current state of play and your guys' war stories, do you think that the red team, blue team distinction should exist, or should it all be purple team? Because based on red team war stories, it seems like what you did as red team, you should then follow up and let those people know how they could remediate those vulnerabilities and that kind of thing. And based on blue team story, it was kind of red teaming your own stuff. So should there be this, black-white distinction, or should it all be purple team going forward?
I'm going to take that. I think there needs to be a distinction, primarily because there's a lot of shit to learn. Even just in blue team, you're talking log analysis, infrastructure, malware analysis. There's so many different domains that if we keep it separate, it'll be a lot easier for people to get really good at things. But having a whole security program, and I think that's when I talk about purple team, I'm talking about a whole security program. So you have a whole solution where people communicate, not just separated, and having that purple team mindset. So blue team, if you guys have built a lab at home, I know I talk shit on Metasploit, but launch Metasploit. Look at what the Wireshark logs, there we go, look like. Similarly, if you're a red team, figure out how to patch something before you work your way around it. And learn how to ship logs to Elk.
You mentioned things like security program, and I'll refer to Slack and minor debate that was going on the other night just because of fun. But the reality is, where does blue team end? Is that really defined within a security program, and is it just a security team that's working for a corporation, or does that actually go all the way down to our common call centers, that have attributed access to be able to change passwords and update things? So I guess the really question is yes, should there be a delineation, but is blue team really scoped as broad as red team? Red team has every tool out there that they possibly can use. From a corporate standpoint, what are the tools that we're limited to as a blue team? Is it because I'm a sysadmin? Is it my firewall admin? Or is it because I can change passwords? And where does that security team actually extend out to? Or is it the 3 guys that sit next to the NOC that can go, hey, I've got elk loaded and we're good? So I would really look at not necessarily merging the two, but enhancing probably the scope of what a blue team is. Because quite honestly, the other side of the table, they got Googles. Right? They can go look for anything that was a no day or whatever dropped yesterday, and they're successful. We have to counteract that. And do we have the right people or the right departments in place to help us gather intel?
I'd like to hear the red team rebuttal to that one.
Well, so I'd like to add on to that. So I think we're all blue team in a way, right? Like, our one job is to protect whatever we're trying to protect. And the reason why we have a red team or pen testing team, what have you, is to find those flaws. You still got to work together. You still have to, collaborate and figure out what went wrong. But we're all trying to do one thing, and that's to make things secure. But there needs to be a difference between a red and a blue. There always needs to be a red team. There always needs to be a blue team. But you still need to work together.
I guess I agree with what Lauren said, that we do need the distinction for the purpose of training and expertise. But I also agree with what Eric said in that the ultimate purpose of a red team is to help the blue team improve, right? And the benefit you get from drawing that line is that we can say, hey, we're going to test your system without giving you any information and find out if you're really defending against everything. And if you are highly sophisticated, if your blue team is highly sophisticated, you will stop most of the threats, right? Most of the attacks. But where the purple team comes in is when you have organizations that aren't as sophisticated, that they want you to walk alongside them and help them understand, hey, what are you sending to my network? What should I be looking for? That kind of thing. So to answer the question in the end, we're all working to the same goal. So in the end, no, it really doesn't matter. But as far as the specialty goes and the level of training that's required to specialize in each of them it's incredible. I mean, even the three of us who are red team, we have vastly different specialties, right? So you can't expect one person to be specialized in all the different things. So, yeah.
Good answers.
You want to say anything?
Well, 2 seconds. Well, I'd say I think it's easier for at least for this point of view is that red teams and blue teams isn't just an ongoing stance, because the ongoing aspect of what we do for a living is to protect things on both sides of this table, right? But if you're in a situational or a exercise, right? We'll go back to military where blue team and DMZs and red teams all came from. Is that the specific test that you're doing at the time does have a blue team and does have a red team, right? To claim that I'm a blue teamer all the time, I'm more purple. To claim a red teamer is a red teamer all the time, probably more purple. But the reality is when you're in a simulation or in a point to counterpoint situation where you're testing your sides, I think there still needs to be that delineation. The report afterwards, we can call it purple.
All right. This is for the red team. I'm just wondering if there's
Louder is better.
So I was just wondering if there's a vulnerability that when you come across it, you just get as giddy as a schoolgirl. Any?
I really like seeing Java deserialization vulns. I see a lot of those, and it's like instant shell into the system, and I know I'm on the inside like right away. And it's like really hard to patch, I know, and so it's like very rarely will they be patched, especially if it's running an older version of Apache or some kind of old Tomcat, but those are just fantastic. Sometimes like I'll even start scans out just looking for invoker servlets across all their domains, just that one service up, and then it's like instant shell, so it's great. My favorite at least. I don't know if you guys have favorites, but
I guess my favorite is actually like directory traversal vulnerabilities, just because that you need to be able to figure out the layout of the server when enumerating and everything, and being able to view files within a system that aren't supposed to be there. It really is like, okay, I can see a lot more than they really want me to, and they can lead to other things and lead to really understanding what system you're trying to exploit.
yeah, and on that one, like I like those too because they show up as like info or lows in most scans, even though when you actually have someone go look at them manually, sometimes there's like SSH keys or passwords or config files, like they actually end up turning out pretty cool.
Hey there. Yeah, so as the blue team, have you ever had any issues with people on the red team? And on the red team, have you had issues with people on the blue team?
What kind of issues?
Just in dealing with, on the red team where you're like presenting the issues, do you have people on the blue team that then, try and discredit that?
Yes, but your job as the attacker is to prove without a doubt that what you did was achievable, right? And you should understand the business that you're performing the test in and be able to explain the business impact. So just like he was saying, if you have a directory traversal and you have nothing in it, yeah, it's an info. But if he finds SSH keys, that's a critical risk, right? So yeah, you're gonna have those pushbacks, but your job is to be able to explain why the risk is the risk.
The only issues I've ever had with anybody is other blue team people or internal IT people who, you know, when red teams are presenting their report, usually they give me clear evidence, or if you guys don't, usually I'm like, look, I'm a smart enough cookie to get this. I can either go get the logs or you can show me what you did. And usually the fight is with internal IT on why I say, you need to turn off SMB version 1 right now. And they don't believe me.
We need that.
And
That's where we come in.
Yeah.
So,
My favorite, I guess this probably comes up more than I think it should, but and sometimes it's great because it's happened to me before. We've scheduled a pen test and like their security team is well aware it's going to happen, and it's like a month out or something, and 2 weeks later we start getting emails from them that there's a web server down and asking if we're testing it, and it seems like anytime anyone finds out there's a pen test going on, every network problem this place has ever had starts to become these pen testers' faults.
well, on that note, I was going to ask, have you ever had a sloppy red teamer completely break your internet?
My one thing to that is that my Nessus scan shouldn't shut down your network. There's like some other issues if my Nessus scan from one host shuts your network down.
Yeah, he's got safe checks enabled.
And I do. And it still breaks.
Okay, so I want to extend on that a little bit. There is a rare phenomena that if you do red team long enough, that you get blamed for legitimate breaches that happen while you're doing an assessment. Okay, and that can be a really big problem because you have to go back and prove that you didn't touch that box at that time and it was actually a legitimate attack that happened that caused that server to crash. So, you know, that can be a problem too.
Yeah, document everything when you're testing.
Yeah, I think the only other thing we really see that is that can be the red team's fault is like if they're running a scan on something that is vulnerable, like real bad to like SQL injection, we can just like load up databases with junk. That's why we try to usually get them to snapshot the database or make a copy, or that's why we try to test in dev environments, is because sometimes the tools, just while they're attempting things, are going to just fill these databases up with just a bunch of junk data. But yeah.
All right.
More of a personal question. Would any of you change which team you support and why? And do any of you believe in what the other team stands for?
Yes. I was a blue teamer for a long time, and I actually joined a red team to become a better blue teamer. So eventually my goal is to go back to blue team and help build a really badass security team. So yeah.
I think the grass is always going to be greener on the other side. I think that if I were to, you know, tomorrow get offered a job on a red team, I would really enjoy it for a while, and then I think I would slowly find, you know, the things that annoy me or whatever, just like I do here. I guess I don't know that I would ever really switch, but I guess I will always augment my knowledge with, I guess, I hate to go back to this, but purple team stuff. You know, making sure you can't know how to defend against stuff if you don't know how the attackers are using it. So there's definitely value in always obtaining knowledge of either red or blue team stuff. I don't know. I think I like blue more though.
To expand on that, no. Because the red team market is super saturated right now. Every kid and their grandmother who went to a community college or a four-year college or is coming out of high school wants to go on red team because they saw Mr. Robot. And also because I don't like a company defining what my research standards are, so.
Today on blue team, I'm probably strong purple. I do a lot of advisory for other blue teams. Truth be told, red team to me is diagnostics and data input. Knowing how my systems can maximize and what their thresholds and what can handle and what it can't handle versus patches versus execution. So to me, they play hand in hand. Would I change size? No, I'm about building things and operational. Red team, it's a one-time instance to validate what I've already built. So I'll probably always be a blue team or purple by heart, but red team gives me the information that I probably don't typically look at, or an abstract view of what I felt was designed or architected.
Where red team is more the glamorous and exciting side of cybersecurity, you know, Mr. Robot and all that jazz, and blue team is more like the political defend and monitor side. When it comes to you, like your superiors and getting them to take your recommendations for fixes, which side do you feel like is more influential when attempting to get systems actually fixed?
Blue team is glamorous. It's poorly portrayed in the media. Only powder blue teams. But okay, so let me ask you this. How many of you have ever played with passive DNS programs? Just raise your hands. Okay, so you're missing out on some really cool shit that's not portrayed as glamorous.
Passive DNS is awesome.
It is, and the problem is that you cannot encompass it in a 15-minute movie montage or YouTube clip, because it takes a lot of work. I forgot the original question, to be honest. But I just wanted to say, blue team is glamorous. Oh, getting buy-in from superiors. I would argue that it's easy on both sides, but it depends on who the person is presenting. You always have to give evidence.
And also, like, red team's often portrayed as glamorous. It is definitely not that glamorous. It is like just reading all the manuals from the install logs and things like that we hope the blue teams didn't actually read all the way through, because they're so boring. And it's definitely just hours and hours of just banging your head against your keyboard, getting nowhere.
And waiting for input.
And I hope you really like writing reports.
Oh, you mean you guys just don't sit around with your hoodies with your thumb holes? Hacking shit up all day? Okay, serious response to that question though. I think it depends on the individual organization and the makeup, I guess how security is treated at that organization. So speaking from higher education, you know, again, generally speaking, we don't have a red team. We all self-identify as blue teamers. So look, my boss has to listen to me complain about all the shit that's wrong in my environment every single fucking day. If I can get someone external to my company to come in and tell how bad our shit is, and if they'll listen, awesome. Oftentimes, you know, they're seen as extra professional opinion, and they put more impetus. And possibly that's because of how glamorous it is portrayed. You know, possibly because they just see us day in and day out. I don't know.
I mean, it's like with any like sport, like offense is always like more glamorous than the defenders, because they just don't get the big plays. And like, no one's writing blog posts about how their firewall blocked this one attack that came through with like a long attack chain that sounds all awesome, just because like the win's like a totally different thing. And so I think that's just, it's really hard to portray as exciting.
All right, so this is primarily for blue teamers, and I think I know the answer from that previous one. What is your favorite source of data? If you could pick one. I know that you have to use all of them, but what's your favorite?
DNS. It's underutilized. Underutilized by blue team, overutilized by red team. And there's a lot of serious threats out there, especially if you're not implementing DNS over TLS. It's overlooked protocol in my opinion.
I really like open file shares inside networks. It's amazing what people throw on those.
If I had to pick one information source, I would say network tap of my network on the edge. Because then, if nothing else, I can at least see everything that's going on, whether or not I can actually do anything about it, or translate that information. Again, I don't know, in this hypothetical, do I not get Google anymore? You know, if I had to pick one thing, it would be that, the 100% visibility at the edge, and ideally on the inside too, but I'll take what I can get.
It's kind of an extension on what Ryan said, but printers. Printers are the one thing that are never locked down, ever. And you find lots of interesting stuff on them.
No, with the tap and the full packet, you can turn on, take out my AV, you can take out my logs, you can take out all the things that I bought and put in and strapped onto my network to say I'm secure. You can't change the packet. And if I identify what you're doing with the packet, source, destination, and your payload, I will counterattack.
All right, so red team or blue team you both have to interact with people, you both have to, get them to engage with you. What's the best way that you've found to have people pay attention to what you're telling them?
Verbal team.
Know what you're talking about and don't BS, because people can spot it from a mile away. You say one thing that's stupid wrong and they stop listening forever.
In addition to that, I have a philosophy. I call it the D-BAD philosophy. D-BAD stands for don't be a dick. It turns out, if you're not a dick to people, they tend to respect you more. This is an excellent piece of advice in dealing with anyone. Red, blue, purple, fucking magenta.
And I think, like recently we've been trying this too, is like face-to-face communication. I think a lot of times there is some, like just because you guys talk to each other over the phone, like the red team and the blue team talk, we like scope something out, like they're more likely to just like escalate things that normally wouldn't if you had just met them and talked with them like normal people in a room. And I really think face-to-face helps out a lot in those situations.
I have to agree with that. Core communications makes it a lot easier. If you try doing text messages, emails, or flat reports, you're going to get red team, blue team, which is not what you want in that meeting. Reality is the other part is if you're a red teamer, I don't care how you pop shells. If anything, that's going to turn you off. You come to me with a bunch of FUD, it's going to turn me off. I want to hear how we're going to solve this together. You providing a report and my team being able to counter or be able to show where we think you're wrong, or maybe we have a second avenue of remediation. It shouldn't be adversarial if you're being a consultant and you're doing a red team. On the same side, and if you're a blue teamer, have an open mind. Guess what? Your shit ain't that perfect, right? Somebody's found a crack. Have an open mind.
Yeah, I would agree. I want to say also that, I should forget what I was going to say.
Right on.
Yeah, don't be a dick. You also want to like offer advice, right? Like you want to like help them and actually have a discussion. Like rather than just presenting and being the one person speaking the whole time, like let it be an open dialogue. Let it actually be a discussion as to what can we do to fix this.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to add is we really try to avoid using inflammatory language when you're trying to describe something. So don't say, your team fucked this up, and that's why we were able to get in, or they're a bunch of idiots or something like that. Just explain what the problem is and explain that you're trying to help improve things rather than trying to put the blame on anybody.
Good answers. So we got 4 people in line. I'm going to cut it off after those 4 people so that we're not just running forever. But let's get some more questions.
It's probably more for blue team than red team, but what is your favorite story of where you brought some evidence to managers and told them this was going to happen, they blew it off, and then it happened? And I told you so.
I have a lot of examples. I'm trying to think of one that won't get me fired for sharing.
Yeah, this is the problem with that question.
Well, so from like a red team perspective, right? Let's say something gets released on a Friday and it's some crazy, CVSS 10 score, and you try to present it to the business like, hey, this is pretty bad, we should fix this. And they're like, well, it's not being exploited yet. We might have some intelligence that is being exploited in the wild or whatever, and then, weeks go by, people forget, and all of a sudden you're popped.
Equifax.
Let me tell you a little story about a small company called Boeing. I have some very controversial opinions on what happened with Boeing, primarily because I've seen it happen in many of my clients with repeat pen tests over the last year and a half. Obviously, you cannot patch a Windows Me box or
Not with that attitude.
or an MRI machine. But here's the deal, the patch has been out for a year plus now. It made BBC World, so there's no excuse because you can get that on your phone. Patch everything you can, and honestly, defense in depth is an old concept at this point. If you're not defending your networks at the perimeter or segmenting your networks, you need to do that. And obviously Boeing wasn't as bad as it could be. It didn't hit their corporate network, it just hit their manufacturing network. But the same kind of thing has happened with several of my clients with repeat pen tests over the years. We say, patch Eternal Blue. Okay, I patched my VIP databases. We're good. Oh, wait. Jim from sales just got back from Beijing for 8 months. Guess who didn't get a patch because of the Great Firewall of China? Guess who just got access to your corporate network? And guess who has no AV installed because, he was in China. That makes sense. So, small words of advice.
Great.
Based on your experience as a group, red team and blue team, and all the different entities that you worked at, what are things that you see as a common problem at the organizations that you worked at that whether you're blue team looking at log analysis, malware, or pen testing, when you're looking at vulnerabilities that those that work in a SOC environment or work in vulnerability threat management, et cetera, should look at improving to make the entity more secure?
My biggest thing that I see, just like from the attacker's perspective, is these companies go out and spend like crazy amounts of money on products, like a ton of money, and they've got 2 people that work on their security team, but one of those products could have hired like 4 guys for multiple years at least, and they'd be a lot better off than having these poorly, barely implemented $1 million products that they bought. So just a lack of like understanding that you need people to even look at any of these things you bought, and then to be able to implement them. I'd like to see people more, I guess, it'd be good because you'd have more people working, and yeah, that's what I see.
I would say along those same lines, communication is probably the biggest thing that could be worked on. Depending on how large your organization is, a lot of the components that in a smaller company, a security team might be in charge of, those duties might be more distributed. So I get a lot of funny looks from vendors whenever I tell them that our networking team is the one who is in charge of the firewall. I know, but if you can communicate with those other groups, that, because let's be real, I mean, there's security aspects to every job if you're dealing with computers, period. Whether you want to admit it, or, well, none of you guys probably wouldn't admit it, but whether your sysadmins want to admit it or not, security is something they should be considering as well. So the larger the organization, the more teams need to work on communication with one another, and I guess a corollary to that would be documentation as well, because you don't have to talk to my ass if you'll just write it down and I can read it. That's fine too. Draw me a picture, that'd be great.
I agree actually with both. Probably when I get pulled into consult, it's one of those 2 things. One, either we have a ton of shelfware and we spent $300,000 on a Splunk deployment for our one-man guy that's the Active Directory deployment, the network admin, and the help desk, and he's going to collect all the logs and make sure that we're not getting protected or getting attacked. And then the other side of it is it always frustrates me when I come into an organization and we've got network team, server team, app devs, help desk, call center, DBAs, and they're all in these silos, and security is this like weird thing that's still over here of elitists, all right, and we look down on them, or we're not included in the conversations. Reality is, I think we've reached a maturity, or at least I hope our industry's reached a maturity, that security is the foundation of everything we do. If I deploy a server, I probably ought to do it the most secure way. If I deploy a switch, I do it. The days of slinging boxes and going, the vendor said I was good and have a nice day, I think are over, or at least they should be.
I also just want to say, I've never heard the term shelfware before. It's fucking awesome. I'm going to use that.
I have 3 points really quick. I'll make it super fast. Number 1 is internal IT fighting against security or vice versa. That's got to stop. I had one client who said that their internal IT refused to put a span on so that we could monitor their network at the perimeter.
Limitation of Cisco.
Limitation of Cisco. It definitely wasn't that though. And guess what? They got breached 14 days later. No record of anything because logs weren't aggregating. Number 2 is blue team burnout. This is a topic I am very passionate about, and I don't have an answer to solve it, but number 3 kind of goes into scope and duty creep. We have a lot of people doing a lot more than they should be for whatever reason, for a lot less pay, a lot less time off, and a lot less clarity. So if you're in management, one of the best things you can do, especially for blue team people, I don't know about red team because I don't do that, is define clearly what your analysts are doing and limit what projects they're getting pulled in on. Because I've been on HIPAA meetings, and I have nothing to do with HIPAA. And that's 6 hours of my life the last month that I lost. Only 6.
So as a strong believer in weaponizing your users, getting them training, as well as bug bounties, and some bug hunters saying they're earning more money doing bug bounties than actually being on a team or going, white hat. Do you feel these bug bounties, which can be great for a company, threaten red team from actually being needed?
No. The thing is, with the bug bounties, the people who make, fuck bug bounties, all right? So the people who make all the money off of bug bounties are the people who go on Shodan and search for the same fucking vulnerability, and they go and pop them and they report them, and they're looking for scraps, right? When you hire an expert red team, they're using their creativity primarily, right? We use a lot of the same tools, and yeah, we'll use that information, make sure that you don't have anything, the lowest hanging fruit out on Shodan, right? But in the end, that is not what you're paying for. You're paying for somebody to use their brain, manually look at all of your servers, try to figure out if there's a vulnerability there that nobody ever thought about, right? So in a lot of the cases, we're doing custom exploits. He's talking about serialization vulnerabilities, in those cases where it's a custom app that you had to figure out the protocol to even exploit it, right? So no, I don't think bug brownies are a thing.
Yeah, and also we haven't even talked about the inside yet either, right? I mean, bug bounties are just external, they're just whatever's on the internet. But I mean, you still need a red team or a pen testing team to start doing the internal stuff too, because...
Oh shit.
Ah, jeez.
Bunch of water.
Hey, you're empty.
I'd like to comment that is not Jaeger, and I feel like I've been unjustly served. White hat, I got the black hat Jaeger. Okay.
I feel cheated, and I feel like Corey wouldn't stand for this. Really quick on kind of what Archer said, even though I am blue team, this kind of goes in line with the red cell emulation. I don't know how many of you saw Miter's new Caldera tool, Grimm's crossbow tool, which is like a month-long pen test that's automated, and you can add modules and yada, 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 yada. No one's going to know and hack your network like a person is going to, and no one's going to be able to roll with the punches like a person is. A program is a program, and nothing will ever get rid of that. Bug bounties aside, anything like that.
Yeah, I guess I feel a little bit different where I do think like bug bounties somewhat worry me in that they can like crowdsource a pen test essentially, and like I get 1 week to do that and the company has to pay me X amount. But with bug bounties, they can ask 100 people to do it and they only pay them for results. So like to me, I get that how it can be a little bit scary, like, oh man, am I gonna have a job anymore? But then you think about all the companies that are not gonna be willing to just let anyone off the street into their networks. A lot of bug bounties are unauthenticated type testing. And so a lot of companies also wanna know what authenticated type testing is, and the bug bounties have very specific scopes for a reason. It's because they don't want just random people coming across the wrong stuff, or at least inviting them there. And so I think like the whole red team and pen testing is going to be around just for all those companies that are not going to be willing to let anybody do it. I mean, obviously any company at all times is letting anyone hack them, or they're trying to prevent that, but yeah, I guess I see that, the privacy side.
So, well, I'm going to throw something in here because I know I'm supposed to be an impartial third party, or not, but something else that I just ran into with a client of mine was bug bounties are no replacement for a pen test, software security assessment where they have access to code, they have access to internal infrastructure, things like that. I had a client that was incredibly proud of themselves for implementing a bug bounty program, but they'd stopped doing it they'd stopped doing internal pen tests in favor of bug bounties. and there's no comparison between the two.
So I think bug bounties have created, in its origin, I think it had a purpose. But reality is now is an excuse to have crap code, right? If I have crap code, because we don't hear about no days and privatized bug bounties until it's the CIA, it's in the news, and we attack China with it, right? What we hear about are the fodder that's out there to say, yeah, I've got crap code in my application, I'll pay you 10 grand to fix my code, right? And you can crowdsource it too. You know, our standard or acceptance for products to be delivered in a fashion that's acceptable and secure has lowered, and bug bounties was a countermeasure for that. Are there security parts in there that we can address? Yeah, but the majority of the fodder that's being released just comes down to crap code, and it was easier to pay off a bug bounty than it was to pay someone to actually give us good development.
All right, I got one last question.
Should take this first.
Yeah, you guys should definitely take the shot first.
It's too cold. Cheers.
Shots. I'll still never forget being at DEF CON, watching kids go down the elevator yelling shots.
I thought I was going to make it through this.
It was a melted snowman.
No, there's always shots. All right, so my question, if I cannot trigger the speaker, you almost have to be on stage, is about the compensating controls. So one of the effects after a red team and blue team exercise is generally that the company, the group that you have orchestrated that measure with, hopefully they have the blue team on their side and you red teamed them, or it was a whole coordinated education effort. Well, they've realized they have failures. They realize they have issues that need fixing. Sometimes you can't fix it. Dun, dun, dun.
A lot of times.
A lot of times. So what are your current concepts from red team and blue team about compensating controls? How we live and breathe by them, how we leave them in place, and maybe forget about them.
So I'll speak from a blue team standpoint. There's plenty of ICS right now that medical devices, utilities, doesn't matter, we'll just say IoT, that still runs on XP, and we can't patch the shit and we can't fix it, but you can do a risk assessment and it's identify the threats that address it. So if you have to have an XP system that you can't patch, you can't fix, and it holds the keys to the kingdom, you can still drop it in a zone, take it off the internet, minimize exposure, limit who can log into what can't, follow general best practices as to user access and ability to log and respond to anything that touches that ungodly XP system sitting in the corner controlling the whole eastern seaboard utilities, right? But the point is you can take controls. You just don't throw your arms up, right? And just because you have to have a legacy system doesn't mean you stop there either. And unfortunately, I see a lot of that. They're like, it's XP, you can't do nothing. There's a lot of other things you can do. I pivot to you.
Agreed. I see. Yeah, we see those boxes, and then I'll find DAs logged into it, and it's just like, there was no need for that. Why did you do that? And it's just, yeah. I mean, there's so many different. You don't have to fix that specific vuln, but you can segment it. You can take it off the domain even, and or set up a separate domain that doesn't have a trust going back up to your root forest, and. I just think there's always a compensating control, and it's better to at least identify where those risks are so you know what you need to be looking at. You can set up better logging and at least know where your assets are that are potentially bad and you can't fix and do something about them. Besides fixing them, at least get them off your normal networks.
One of the aspects about this question is truthfully, how do you track it? So you know via Nessus or Qualys that you have the vulnerability, but how do you actually age that system that eventually, hopefully, you get rid of, and how do you make sure that management is aware that that is still a line item? That all right.
Answer.
I think you killed Jim.
Mic drop.
Higher education is a lot of compromising, for better or for worse.
So in other words, it's the access database.
Essentially, I'm going to ignore that. Essentially, if somebody high up enough on the food chain complains loud enough, policy is going to be circumvented for that individual. Now, that being said, and this might be an unpopular opinion as well, I don't think that there are many situations where even when an exception has to be made, that you necessarily have to have an insecure solution. Maybe less than ideal, certainly, but there's no one way to skin a cat. There's at least a dozen ways to do almost anything in our field right now. Really, part of implementing compensating controls is figuring out what the end user needs to do and how they can do it, and working with them on that.
I don't know what compensating controls means, to be honest.
It's an exception.
But I will say that asset management is your best friend. Before you go put carbon black on every single endpoint you have in your environment, because they do have an XP agent, wink wink, nudge nudge, all you purchasers, make sure you know what the fuck is on your network. If you don't know what you have, it's an unknown unknown. You're screwed. The more visibility you have, the better you work with internal IT, the better you're gonna be.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off because, these have been great answers, but we're running late on time. So I do have one more question that I want a quick answer from each of you on. So it's not the question you're thinking of, Lauren, sorry. Taking the common answers of persistence and curiosity off the table for a moment, what one trait, skill, or nugget of information do you view as the most important for a future red or blue team member?
Read Windows sysinternals before you do anything.
Oh my God. You're scaring everyone away, I think.
Do it! $2.
Go that way, I need to think something.
Creativity. If I only get to choose one, it'll be creativity.
Problem solving.
Determination. Don't give up.
Yep, try harder.
This is the sword, so it's the red team.
We've said persistence in two other ways.
There's always a way in.
So I'm going to say self-respect. And the reason I'm going to say that is, so you brought up burnout a little bit earlier. Burnout is super real. I know particularly on the blue side, maybe on the red team as well, I would imagine it happens, but burnout is really serious. Make sure that you aren't bending over backwards for your employer every day of the week. You should know you should be taking breaks. You need to be sleeping each night. Yes, I sleep. Take care of yourself, okay? If you don't take care of yourself, you're gonna fuck up at everything you do, job or not.
Find a hobby that's not.
That's a great place to leave this conversation. Take care of yourself. So I want to thank everybody who came up to ask questions, and I want to thank our panelists, Brian, Eric, Jim, Mike, fail, Lauren, and Aaron. Thank you all for coming out.